Marcus, that was not the first impression I intended on making with you, but it happened. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Canada. Welcome to the Jays. Welcome to Tim and Sid. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. All that stuff's fun. I hope those people are wearing masks at least with that test in Atlanta.
At one point they were, and then when it came down to cussing out LeBron, the mask came off, which horrified a lot of people, including Adam Silver, I'm sure. Anyway, we'll move past that. This is about you and the new team. Let's move on to good things.
My first question, though, is: are you too young for Shabba Ranks?
Yes. I have no idea. Idea what that is.
Shabba once wore a girl. I'll tell you that.
You're aging
us.
I'm
totally lost.
Justifiably, yes. You're not the first guest to be lost in this show. I'm sorry about that, Marcus. Let's move on and talk about relevant things. Let's start with why Toronto?
Well, good question. I haven't even thought about it like that. This free agency was something that I've, first of all, never experienced, but a lot of people are just, having trouble figuring out with COVID and everything. But I did a Zoom call with Toronto a couple of weeks ago that really just went well. And it just, they said kind of what they were looking for in a veteran, leader, infielder. And I liked everything I heard. And as time went on, and you're doing calls with other teams and you're hearing other offers, it's like, man, these Toronto guys, like they have a really good thing going over there. And, here we are today. I'm really happy with the decision my family and I made, and we're really looking forward to this 1 year and hopefully more after that.
What do you know? Jays fans' ears just perked up when you said that. But what do you know about the team that you're joining?
Well, I know that there's a young core that is just full of studs, right? Like especially the position group. I haven't played against all of them, but being on the West Coast in Oakland, we get to watch all those East Coast games, and I love watching baseball, and I would watch them play, and I'm like, man, who are these kids? Like, I know some of them, their pops, played in the big leagues and all this, but the more I watch them, I'm like, these guys are good. And, then you start to see the guys they're adding, George Springer, Kirby Yates, some of the moves they've made. It's just like, wow, they're really adding some quality players. And then when they called me, just, the offer they made just was really hard to turn down, especially with everything they have to offer as an organization.
Marcus Semien, who finished third in AL MVP voting back in 2019, joining us here on Tim and Sid. He is the newest member of the Toronto Blue Jays. Marcus, forgive me if I'm intruding, but I am curious. At what point in the decision-making process were you when you heard about the George Springer signing? Like, had you and the Jays even been really communicating that much? Like, where did that stand when you heard?
Yeah, we were in communication before that. So like I mentioned, that Zoom call, that was before George had signed. So we continued to talk, and, my whole thing initially was like, hey, I want to play shortstop still. And so we kind of we didn't talk probably for a week and a half because, we told him, hey, he's got some options that are guaranteeing him a spot to play shortstop. Yes, we're looking for a 1-year deal. And, as time went on, this offer kind of developed with Toronto. And the more and more I thought about it, I'm like, this is still middle infield. And, I want to go out there and have a full season under my belt, a quality season to go in and try to do this thing again in free agency. And I felt like this is the perfect spot to do it. Even though it's not shortstop, this is going to be really, really fun. And I'm really excited for this year.
Marcus Semien here on Tim and Sid. Marcus, you haven't played second base at this level since 2014. Are you looking also at maybe next off season? There's a lot of shortstops that are coming up here, and you're one of the great ones. But are you also thinking, you know what, if I could change the narrative a bit and also go into that second base market, assuming you do that, which contractually you'd have the right to, how much of that are you thinking about going into this move, that this could also benefit you long term as well?
Well, first and foremost, I'm 100% focused on the task at hand this year. Now, looking at the market next year and the position, I would hope that the industry kind of sees me as someone who can still play shortstop.
For sure.
And if not, hey, second base is there. So it seems like in today's era, versatility is not a bad thing. It'll be interesting to see kind of what those big name shortstops next year are asking for, and then we'll kind of see what both markets look like. But like I said, this year is what I'm focused on, bringing a championship to Toronto first. I mean, that's the goal, and everything else we'll figure it out when we get there.
We heard from your former A's teammates upset that they lost a leader. How tough / nice, I guess bittersweet would be the word. How bittersweet is it for an East Bay guy especially to hear that on the way out your teammates respected you on a team that you had spent 6 seasons with?
Yeah, I mean, I did read some of the things that were said, and we built something nice there. I mean, the culture when I first got there, they were coming off 3 years of playoffs, but they kind of dismantled that team and restarted again. And in 2015, I was a young guy and I didn't say much, but we had 3 tough seasons. And by the time the end of 17 happened, we brought some of these young guys up, very similar to Bo and Kevin and Vladdy. Like, we're talking about Matt Chapman, Matt Olson here. Like, yeah. When those guys came up and everything started to come together a little bit, and I felt like I was more in a leadership role, we built something that was just beautiful, like culture. Everybody had, a voice in the clubhouse, and we wanted a clubhouse where we want each player to be the best versions of themselves. And whatever you need to do that, let's see it, because we don't want anybody in here walking on eggshells because they're a rookie, and then it affects how they play on the field. So that's kind of what some of the guys were talking about, and they'll still have that over there. It's just, it's kind of a thing where I was used to playing at home. 1 year deal. I thought maybe it would happen, but it didn't, and I'm grateful that I'm here in Toronto.
Is that something you feel like you can bring to the Jays?
Definitely. When I arrive in Dunedin, the first thing I want to do is just kind of meet everybody and see how everybody goes about their business. And I want to try and fit in as best as I can. And, I think that my experience will help. Playoff experience helps. George's World Series experience really helps. But just the amount of at-bats we've had in the big leagues and different things we've seen that maybe the young bucks haven't seen yet will really be able to rub off on them.
Marcus Semien, the newest Blue Jay here on Tim and Sid. I mean, Marcus, you look at this team now up the middle. You got Springer in center for the most part. You got yourself and Bo. You got your relationship both on and off the field is going to be vital here. Has he reached out? Have you talked to him? Has there been any communication?
Yeah, he was one of the first guys who reached out. Him being a Tampa guy, he's like, hey, let me know anything you need. Let me know, because I grew up in the area. He knows that it's a big move for my family and I, being from the West Coast and used to Arizona. And what I mentioned to him was that I was just really, really excited to work up the middle with him. And I told him I've been watching some video on him and his defense, and I can't wait to get to work on some things that'll get us both ready to just be solid up the middle and help our pitchers out, because both of us have, impact bats, but the defense is, in our mind, defense should be the most important thing, because it doesn't just affect us, it affects our pitchers. Hitting will always be there. And that's kind of the mindset I hope to bring in. I'm sure he already has it, but just to kind of emphasize it.
Marcus Semien joining us here on Tim and Sid. I know last year wasn't what you wanted it to be. Hell, that could be said for most of us about last year. But I was researching your career for this interview, and I noticed that even after you were drafted and you followed your parents to Cal, freshman year wasn't exactly what you wanted, but you bounced back. Like, it's kind of littered throughout your career, bouncing back. Is that something you've noticed and pride yourself on?
Yeah, I think that every year you kind of, once you finish the year, you look back on it and see, hey, what did I do well? What did I not do well? And you have an entire off season to kind of iron some things out and keep the things you did well going. So, I look at last year and where I finished, and I just literally just rolled right into the off season. Like, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I want to continue. And the main focus for me now is having a full gym to work out in and focusing on my health and my body and just getting in better shape. Because for a lot of people, the pandemic kind of, messed up where they train or how they train or their routine. And, guys, got banged up. I feel like I was banged up even though it was a 60-game season because, I didn't get to train the way I wanted. So now I'm in a really good place with my body and fitness, as well as my routine with baseball stuff, and I really can't wait to get out to that brand new complex.
Marcus Semien, new member of the Jays here on Tim and Sid. Marcus, you're not only a new member of the Jays, but you are part of the Players Association Executive Subcommittee. Obviously, major news last night, the owner's proposal of 154 games and other things. I don't want to belittle the other things, but for the sake of time, I say that, was turned down by your association, and there was no counter. I don't want to get in the weeds on that, because that's not my intention. This is a welcome to Toronto thing. I want to keep it light. But your opinion of going in there now on April the 1st and having a full 162, how comfortable are you with that? Because there are some risks there, and obviously this was a complicated proposal. It wasn't black or white, but your thoughts on how the last 24 hours kind of played out between the PA and ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot over this, 2020 and the early part of this year about just CBA negotiations, now COVID negotiations. None of it is easy, and I get it. Both sides have, their agendas. We do want everything to kind of line up for the better of the game, but sometimes there's decisions that have to be made that, are for the better of the players. This is our union, and we believe that, we can play a full season here. We were happy to push the season back if we could push it back on the other end, but that wasn't the case. So we looked at the proposal as, okay, 154 games in 166 days and expanded playoffs. And we kind of, looked at all the risk, the injury risk there, amongst other things. And, we have a CBA in place that has a schedule written out right now. And that's kind of what we already want to do. So that's why there was no counting.
Marcus Semien here on Tim and Sid. I feel bad because I went down the Shabba Ranks road to start this conversation. Ask mom and dad. They might have a better idea of the Jamaican dance hall artist, Shabba Ranks, that is part of the culture in Toronto. So I might have to play it for you a little later on in the season. And at the risk of being old again, I have to remind you and ask you that another Bay Area kid came to Toronto from Oakland and did okay. A guy named Ricky Henderson came in '93. And it turned out pretty good for him, for the Jays, a World Series. Am I bringing up one of your dudes, or were you like three, and I'm, again, an old man on live national television radio?
No, Ricky is one of the biggest influences on my career. Of course, I loved him as a kid. He was also my dad's favorite player. And Ricky was also one of the first people I called in the beginning of this offseason, just because him being a Bay Area kid with so much time, in Oakland, our hometown, I wanted his take on just, when he went through the process, his process was a little different because he was traded from Oakland. Yeah. I made it through the free agency, but he said, he did enjoy the West Coast more, but Toronto was the one place on the East Coast that he loved. And I take all the advice I can from Ricky, and that stuck with me the entire off season. So when they called, I had that in the back of my mind the whole time.
When he broke Lou Brock's stolen base record and the line, "I'm the greatest of all time," was that the most egotistical thing ever or the greatest thing in the history of sports?
Well, once you hear his story about it, you realize that it was one of the greatest things, and he was the greatest stolen base, guy of all time, and that's what he meant. And it's funny because he would come out and do base running with us in spring, but nobody could do it like Ricky. And it was just like, man, this guy is like so explosive. I literally can't do what you do, Ricky, but I'll listen. But that's kind of how those days went sometimes.
What was 130 was the number, I think, in one season, right? Like that's his record, 130 stolen bases.
He had to be stealing second and third every time.
Yeah,
that's crazy because how many times you go over and you don't get on base? So it's just it's amazing what he did, and nobody else will ever be able to do that in this game.
It's a great point. You can't steal first base. It's a great point.
Exactly. So we talked hitting a lot. We talked hitting more than base running because, I was hitting leadoff for a while for Oakland, and just like, man, how did you walk so much with all that power? That's what every GM salivates over, the numbers you put up. And, he was so talented, but he knew his approach. He knew the spot he was looking for, and he did not leave that spot. And every player wants to get to that, that point in the season where they can do that, but he just was able to do it for his entire career.
Well, I mean, I don't want to put the pressure on you. He was on base before Carter's home run. There is a special place in the hearts of Jays fans for Ricky Henderson. Mm-hmm. So, but regardless of the great Ricky Henderson, Marcus, there's a lot of people excited. I know it's a weird time. We can't meet face to face, and hopefully we will soon. Welcome to Canada. Welcome to this organization. And it was a pleasure talking to you today, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, Marcus. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, guys.